I haven't heard of one yet.
They're working on it. Where they're going to go.
No point in sitting down.
We're going to get a 2-minute warning.
I was trying to guess the hospital.
Well, I mean, whenever you see one go moving,
But there are several now.
not sure, actually.
No one's gonna I'll remove all these microphones.
No, we will. Yeah, we just don't want to sit in the dirt for an hour for no reason. We'll get down.
We'll sit down when we get the 2-minute warning.
That's right. Give us 2-minute warning.
We're used to sitting on the deck. It's okay.
Do anything today.
We'll get down.
If you're listening on the mics, we'll do it when their 2-minute warning comes up is when we'll sit down.
Half an hour.
Sergeant?
Yeah, I'm the same way. Yeah, I
To make a path for the
That's my son.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2.
Yes. Minutes.
Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Should be about 3 to 5 minutes. 3 to 5 minutes, and they'll be out here. 3 to 5.
3 to 5 minute warning.
Would you like spelling on names? Okay. San Bernardino City Chief of Police is Jared Burguan. Jarrod Burguan. San Bernardino County Sheriff John McMahon. MCMAHON. LA Director FBI David Bowditch. BOWDICH. Again, it'll be about 3 to 5 minutes.
Spell that last name one more time.
BOWDICH for Bowditch. He is the LA Director of the FBI. Did you get it?
One more time. BOW.
DICH. First of David.
And those are the only three.
Chief of Police, San Bernardino City, Jared Burguan. BURGUAN.
you repeat the sheriff and the police chief?
Yes. Chief of Police Jared Burguan, Burguan. San Bernardino County Sheriff John McMahon, McMahon. Again, it'll be about 3 to 5 minutes. Thank you for your patience.
5-minute warning. Sir, can you give us a 2-minute warning? A lot of the stations are taking it live. Thank you very much.
You want me to fry a national TV audience?
I hope you have a walk for 10 minutes so I can get like delivered.
Albert, we're live. Keep it steady. Yeah, definitely. No, they don't.
Mr. President.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Thank you. Okay, here they come. Here they come.
Okay, 5 feet away. Go.
Are we ready to go? All right, good morning. Good morning, everybody. Again, my name is Jared Burguan, Jarrod, last of Burguan, Chief of Police here in San Bernardino. I also have Sheriff McMahon with me, and we have Congressman Pete Aguilar and County Board of Supervisor James Ramos joining us this morning as well. I want to start this off by reiterating that how incredibly tragic this is. And we've got a lot of families that are clearly devastated by what happened here. And we need to be sensitive to that. And I want it put out to those families out there that our prayers are with them and that we are here to support them any way that we can. Some updated numbers. Same as yesterday, we have 14 people that are confirmed dead in this incident. The number of wounded has risen from 17 to 21, and they are being treated at various local hospitals. We were asked yesterday about the number of officers that responded. We are still compiling the total number of officers that responded here at 11 o'clock when the initial call of the shooting went out. Our rough count right now is about 300 officers from local, county, state, and federal agencies that responded for the initial active shooter component of this and helped deal with the crime scene here. Many of those assets also moved and were part of the investigation and the officer-involved shooting that followed. Here at the scene at the Inland Regional Center, what we have total is we believe the suspects, when they entered, fired somewhere between 65 and 75 rounds from their rifles at the scene. We did locate the one pipe bomb. There was actually 3 pipe bombs combined into one that had a remote control car type remote control device that appears to have not have worked in this case. There were also 4 high capacity 223 rifle magazines that were dropped by the suspects and left in there as evidence that have been recovered. I can confirm that the suspects were wearing the black style tactical gear that we talked about yesterday. They were not wearing ballistic bulletproof vests. What they did have, and what people may have confused, is they had tactical style vests that held equipment and magazines and ammunition and that sort of stuff. Sorry? Yeah, load-bearing gear. On the officer-involved shooting that took place a couple of hours after the incident, we talked yesterday about how that came to be, how we ended up at that point in the investigation, and what we were following up on. On the officer-involved shooting that occurred, we had 7 police agencies that were involved in that shooting, including our department, the Sheriff's Department. I think we had 14 of our police officers involved. And then there were various other agencies that were all part of some of the local task force that had come to assist in the initial response. Of the 7 agencies involved, we had 23 officers that were actually fired their weapons at the suspects. Law enforcement fired approximately 380 rounds at the suspects. Both of them were killed here at the scene. The suspects are believed to have fired about 76 rifle rounds at the officers at the termination of the pursuit.
How many?
76 is our number that we have right now. However, on them, on their person, on their body, and in the vehicle, they had over 1,400 .223 caliber rounds that were available to them, and they had over 200 9mm rounds on their persons as well. 200 9mm rounds. We talked about yesterday they had the 2 .223 assault style weapons, rifles, and they had 9mm pistols with them.
You said 1,400 on the 223?
1,400 on the 1,400 .223 rounds, 200 9mm rounds.
On their person, 200.
On their person, yes. On their person or immediately in the vehicle around and available to them. Let me get to a few others. We had 2 officers that were injured in that incident. One of them was a San Bernardino police officer that sustained a gunshot wound to his left leg. He was taken to a local hospital last night. He is probably going to be released this morning if he has not already been released. His injuries are not life-threatening. I did visit with him in the hospital last night. He's in good spirits. We also, as of this morning, learned that there was a second deputy that was also injured in the incident, sustained some cuts to his leg that we believe probably came from broken glass or shrapnel. We're not exactly sure, but 2 officers total were injured in that exchange. The house in Redlands that became part of the focus of this investigation yesterday. I will confirm that the search that took place revealed that there were 12 pipe bomb type devices found in that house or in the garage to that house. There were also hundreds of tools, many of which could be used to construct IEDs or pipe bombs. And in addition to that, they had other material to have produced some additional bombs as well. There were another 2,000 9mm rounds found at that house, over 2,500 .223 rounds that were found at that house, and then there were 2,500, and there were additional several hundred .22 long rifle rounds that were found there. So with that, I'm here to talk about the specifics of the investigation and what we discovered evidence-wise. I think the FBI's got some comments to make a little bit later in this. Do you have any questions for me?
Do you believe they were planning another attack?
We don't know. Clearly they were equipped and they could have continued to do another attack. We intercepted them before that happened, obviously. So the investigation is still going on, and I don't think we're prepared to talk about other people that we might be looking for. We are confident that the 2 people that were involved in the shooting here are the 2 dead suspects that we have at the scene, and we do not have any credible information to indicate that there is an immediate threat to anybody in the area or anybody in the region. Can't hear everybody. Brian?
The remote control car that was with the pipe bombs, can you elaborate what that was?
So I'm not an expert on it. It's my understanding that somehow it was 3 pipe bombs that were attached together, somehow attached to this remote control car, and it was designed that the remote control device would somehow trigger or set that device off. We don't know if they attempted to do that and it failed or what the story is.
So it was attached to a car that he was driving, that was moving?
It was found in a bag that was there at the scene.
Was Travel in contact with terrorists via email, via social media?
I'm going to let the FBI address those particular
Based on
issues.
your interviews, sir, based
The
on your
GoPro is not confirmed. We do not have any information the suspects had any GoPros on them,
sir, based on your
or any cameras of any sort that was on them.
based on your interviews with all the eyewitnesses, can you tell us exactly what happened in the room, and do you still believe that there was some dispute and they left and came back? This seems very much pre-planned.
So we have people in the room that have indicated that the suspect was in the room during the early part of this meeting or party type event. It was a county public health Christmas holiday type gathering luncheon is what it was. He was part of that. He was there early on and he left. We did have some initial information that he left under some kind of duress or as if he was angry. We also had somebody else say that, he just kind of disappeared and we don't know where he went from there. So I don't know that we know enough about that yet, but we will confirm that he was there early on.
Did you have any motive for this shooting, sir? Do you have any motive?
We still don't have the motive.
How they got in the building? Were they targeting anyone in particular?
So the building that this took place in, I'm sure you guys all have aerial views of IRC and what it is. So this took place in the southernmost building on the property. The doors that they entered were located on the east side. So they entered from that parking lot into those east doors, which went directly into the room, which is where the shooting took place. Those doors were unlocked. It was an open party to those folks. Well, they sprayed the room with bullets, so I don't know that there was any one person that they ultimately targeted. They killed 14 people there.
Is there any indication that any idea how long time elapsed when he supposedly got this argument, left, and any idea where his wife was from?
I have to apologize. I meant to follow up on that question, and I failed to ask that today. Yesterday, we had information that is anywhere from 10 minutes to 30 minutes. I'll try to tie that up by later on in the day.
It seems hard to believe that all of this was spontaneous. And how can he get...
Oh no, we said yesterday that there appears to be a degree of planning that went into this. Nobody just gets upset at a party, goes home and puts together that kind of an elaborate scheme or plan to come back and do that. So there was some planning that went into this.
Is there any indication, please, sir, is there any indication of how long they had been stockpiling, like found the drug,
I don't think we are far enough into the investigation to really be able to definitively say what that pattern has been or every place that they have been and what they've been doing over the last several months or several years. That's the part that we're still working on, though.
Did he have a grudge against his coworkers that you were able to find out about?
Not that I'm personally aware of, but I think at some point later today we'll probably have a comment from his employer in the county to talk about some of those issues.
Legally possess that much ammo?
He was no longer employed, right, at the center. Why was he invited back to this party?
It's my understanding he was still an employee of the county.
Where did he buy his guns from, do you know?
The guns were legally purchased. The two handguns were purchased by him. The rifles were not, but those are components that we are still following up on. All four guns were legally purchased.
Do you talk about what exchange of a record?
I'm sorry.
Was he known to police or did he have a record?
There's no criminal record that he had that we're aware of.
Who lived in the house?
Tell us about the getaway car. We're told, we've heard some reports there was a Utah license plate. Any idea on how it was acquired? What can you tell us?
It was a black Ford Excursion, the big Expedition or Excursion? Expedition, I'm sorry, a black Ford Expedition. It was a rental car. He rented it 3 or 4 days ago. It was actually due to be returned yesterday. And that's why it had Utah plates, but it was rented locally.
Where did he rent it? About his travels overseas, is there any connection that something was planned by that trip?
I'll let the FBI discuss that. Those are things that they're working on.
Chief, have you been able to identify all the victims and notify next of kin?
So our plan today is we're going to do a morning press conference. Throughout the course of the day, Sheriff McMahon and the coroner's office is going to start releasing the names of the victims. We've been working throughout the night to get identity of those folks and then make notifications. So we will start to put those names out here fairly soon. We're going to probably try to get some pictures out for you as well and probably try to move the media a little closer to the scene for you. And then we'll come back and do a press conference later on. But throughout the course of the day, we anticipate we'll start releasing the names of the victims. I do not know if they all were. Several of them we believe are.
Yesterday you talked about the resolve of your officers, the heroic actions they took in the field. Can you talk a little about this community and how you see them being able to move on past this in the coming days?
You know, I read an article by one of the reporters in the press, no, I'm sorry, the Sun, this morning, and she talked about the resiliency of this community. And the fact everybody knows San Bernardino's been beaten up with the bankruptcy and some of the things that have hit this community, and economically this community has been hit hard. But this is a pretty resilient community. We will survive this. We've had an enormous groundswell of support from our neighboring communities and well wishes that have come in from all over the place. I do know that there is a candlelight vigil planned later tonight. I believe it's at the stadium on East Street. And I think you'll see evidence there of a tremendous amount of support and people that are going to come together and support. As far as the officers, everything that I've seen and all the officers from my department that I've contacted, they're doing extraordinarily well. I'll tell you, as the chief of this agency, I'm incredibly proud of the way that our folks responded. Not only the initial response here and the help that we got from our local and regional partners, but for the way that they also engaged in that officer-involved shooting and chasing down those suspects. That was nothing short of heroic, and extremely proud of the way that they handled that.
Chief, were your officers wearing body cams?
The guns were legally purchased, but is it legal to have those long guns here in California? Yes. Are those?
So I think there's some questions still about whether they were California legal or not. We have not gotten to the bottom of that, and I'll let ATF address that later on. But we do know at this point that the 4 guns were purchased, appeared to be a legal purchase, and appeared to be registered.
Chief, can you tell us officers wearing body cams?
None of our officers had body cams. I don't know about all the other agencies.
Who was living in the Redlands home, Chief?
Ammunition legally? The child, is the child in custody somewhere?
I'm not sure where the child is. I know that they had a 6-month-old child. I don't know exactly where she is. Brian?
Can you possess that much ammunition legally?
I don't think we have restrictions on the volume of ammunition. You may educate me on that, but I'm not aware of any law that dictates.
Anything on the ammunition that was illegal other than...
Offhand, I'm not specifically aware of anything that was against the law there.
Chief, can you tell us more about the search of the Redland home, what you're looking for, what else you may have found beside the ammunition that helps you in seeking the motive?
And who lived there?
So the suspect and both suspects were listed on the rental agreement for the property. As I said yesterday, I don't know that we can definitively say that they were living there or if they were living elsewhere, and what exactly that house was used for. The house became a focus of the investigation based upon information that we had from witnesses that identified him as an employee that was there that they thought was potentially involved, and it was follow-up that we had done connected to that person that took us to that house, led us to that vehicle, which resulted in us in the following and the pursuit and the shooting that happened. Obviously, once we were involved in that, the house became a primary focus. So we took our time in securing it, making sure we went in that house, we cleared it safely. That's where we discovered the other pipe bombs, and I think some other evidence, computer evidence, cell phones, things like that have been recovered from there in various other places.
Did anything come out from that search that helps you?
I think there's a lot of helpful information that we've gotten from a number of
How many
areas.
teams are active right now?
Meaning those people who gave you help, they've been able to provide you with any kind of an accounting of how many people were going in and out of that house other than the 2 people who lived there? Was there a pattern of men coming, going at all times?
We're still working and trying. Obviously, I think we've heard the rumors that you guys have heard, and we've got some information, but I think we're still trying to verify that. Keep in mind that I'm pretty careful that when I come up here, as I said yesterday, information that went out yesterday is like
on a plane. That is because we want expeditious analysis of that evidence. As far as the digital media that was asked about earlier, the digital media is incredibly important because we are trying to determine the motive. We do not yet know the motive. We cannot rule anything out at this point. And we're hoping that some of that digital media exploitation will help us and assist us in obtaining some of that. Again, it would be irresponsible of me, and it would be way too early for us to speculate on motive of why this occurred. Any questions for the FBI?
So why is the motive so important to the FBI?
Have you found any information that says that he did this in the name of religion, or that or with all this ammunition, it's part of a larger group and a larger plot, or maybe he was planning a different attack and got ticked off and decided, okay, I'm just going to turn on these guys.
So again, if you look at the amount of obvious pre-planning that went in, the amount of armaments that he had, the weapons and the ammunition, there was obviously a mission here. We know that. We do not know why. We don't know if this was the intended target or if there was something that triggered him to do this immediately. We just don't know. And again, that's going to take time for us to get to that answer.
Was he in touch with subjects, international subjects, that the FBI or that the authorities were already interested in overseas, either by phone or through social media, as CNN has reported?
International subjects, we are still working through that. We know there was some international travel. They came into the U.S., both he and she was not his wife at the time, but she is now. They both came into the U.S. in July of 2014. They have since had a baby together. He is a U.S. person. She is still here on a K-1 visa.
Do you believe his international travel is connected in any way to this massacre?
We do not know. It's certainly something we're going to look into very, very carefully.
What do you know about the communications that he had with investigative subjects, terrorism subjects that the FBI had under investigation?
I did not hear you.
What can you tell us about any communications he had with terrorism subjects that the FBI had been investigating?
We're still working through that, and again, that goes towards the flow of and the pace of the information. I want to make sure we're absolutely correct before we put that out.
Here in the United States, the FBI was investigating people.
We're still working through that.
6 months ago, he was abroad. What countries was he traveling to, and how long had he been?
Pardon me?
How long had he been out of the country, and what countries has he visited?
It appears that he came back into the U.S. in July of 2014, as I said earlier. I do not know all the countries he visited. We know he did go to Pakistan at one point. We know she is here on a K-1 visa under a Pakistani passport.
What can you tell us about a trip to Saudi Arabia?
Don't have all the facts yet.
How much do you know about her that would explain why she got involved in this caper?
We don't know enough. We do not know enough. I'm going to take 2 more questions.
Is there any evidence that these IEDs were...
Again, it would be irresponsible and premature of me to call this terrorism. The FBI defines terrorism very specifically, and we are still, that is the big question for us, is what is the motivation for this? First and foremost, the integrity of this investigation, again, is paramount. Secondly, it's ultimately to determine the motive and the inspiration for this attack.
The IEDs that were found, how would you describe it as much as the destruction? Was it professional or was this amateurish? Was there high-grade military explosives used there or black powder?
Well, I'm not an expert either, as the chief mentioned earlier, so I don't want to go too deep. I will say there is some level of sophistication, certainly, when you're tying them together and you have seemingly a remote-controlled car that is attached to the device. I'm going to take one more question, and I'm going to turn it back to the chief. Yes, ma'am.
Based off of any kind of designs with Inspire magazine?
I didn't hear you.
Any type of evidence that shows a linkage between the designs of the IEDs and Inspire magazine?
We knew that question would come up, and we're looking into it as we speak. Chief?
Chief, was he ever on anybody's radar screen at all? Did you ever have any prior knowledge of him, the FBI, or anybody, anywhere?
He was not on the radar screen of our agency prior to yesterday. Let me go over a couple details. Our plan today is, as I said early on, we're going to do this press conference now. Throughout the course of the day, we're going to do what we can to release the names of the victims, focus in on those folks. We'll probably try to get you some photos, and as I said, we're going to try to move the media a little bit closer. We will come back with another press conference at the end of the business day, 4 or 5 o'clock. Hopefully we'll have significantly more information for you by then, and then we'll kind of play it by ear. So with that, I'll take a couple more questions, and then I think we're going to cut it off.
Did you determine that he was
So as I said yesterday when we did our early press conferences, there was we got a couple of tips and we were following up on a couple different leads. This was one of the tips that we followed up on very early on. Where that came from was another person that was in the building that knew him, that identified him by name, who expressed some concern over his behavior prior to the event and the way that he left. Following up on that information, we discovered that he had rented a vehicle that was similar to the suspect description that we had received, and we also followed up on addresses that we had more than just that address in Redlands. But the address in Redlands is one that we followed up on, and the rest is obviously we know how that played out.
Chief, were there any traps or anything for law enforcement at the house in Redlands?
There were things that as our officers approached gave them concern that I don't know if the word booby-trapped is appropriate, but there was concern that they did not want to go in immediately. They wanted to approach it very, very carefully and very tactically. And for that reason, we actually used the FBI tactical team for that, because we were stretched so thin here. So the FBI came with their bomb folks. I think the Sheriff's Department may have helped with that component as well. And we used their team to do it. The initial officers that were there and secured the house were not the ones that made entry. We did wait until tactically they did it appropriately.
Have you been able to find any notes or any type of information?
There's nothing definitive that we have right now that points directly to a motive. I have not been made aware of any notes. We are still working on that. It's been a slow process. So when this happened, the sprinklers, the fire sprinklers in the room had actually gone off. We believe what happened is maybe one of the rounds that were fired hit the fire sprinklers, set them off, flooded the room. It took a lot of time to get that process turned off, and then we discovered the explosive devices in the room. It took a lot of time to do that. We did not get to the portion where we were dealing with the victims and the bodies and trying to make the positive identification through fingerprints until the middle of the night. We've been working throughout the night on that, and we have been making notifications since then. What the sheriff plans to do is that slowly throughout the day we will release the names, hopefully of all 14 people today, as we are able to make notifications.
Anyone still in there?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
To the victims right away.
As of several hours ago, there were a few bodies left. We may have been able to remove those victims by now. I'm sorry, Brian. Go ahead.
Were you able? You talked about the delay in getting to the bodies through the sprinklers, etc. But were you able to go in right away and
Absolutely. So the initial response, the officers went through the water and all that, identifying bodies, searching for suspects. All that was done. We had confirmed that those folks had lost their life, that they were dead, and then we discovered the IEDs, which caused the safety personnel to back out, deal with those in an effective way.
The holiday party, did the suspects have any conversation with the holiday goers?
Not that I've been told.
Did he say anything during the shooting?
Not that I've been told.
Have you been able to confirm, or have you been able to find out through local means and the FBI the list of all the local people here in the San Bernardino area that these people may have been in touch with over a period of, say, a week, 2 weeks prior to the shooting, or are you still reaching out to try to find those people?
That is still part of that broader, more complex investigation to see if there are other co-conspirators or people that may have been aware of something. And I'm just not quite prepared to give details on any of that just yet. So at the officer-involved shooting, we did indicate that there was a person that was detained out of that. That person was seen running away from the scene. What we have learned since then is that there were several police cars and undercover cars that pulled up that were engaged in that officer-involved shooting with the suspects. We found out later on that there were people that were in cars that abandoned their cars and ran the other direction when the gunfire started. I don't know if that person was one of those. We did ultimately determine that he was not involved in the incident. He is not a suspect. He's not a person of interest. He did happen to have a misdemeanor warrant. He was booked on that warrant. Sorry?
Where did you find the IED? In the conference room?
It was in the middle of the room on a table in a bag.
Were you able to ascertain whether or not it was the suspects or police who fired first at the shootout? And is it clear to you if these suspects had the intent to die there?
I don't know if I can speak to their intent on that. It's my understanding they opened fire first. Rounds came out of the back of the car from the female that was in the back, firing through the back of the SUV at the police vehicles, and then the male suspect, who was the driver, got out and fired at officers from the street as well. I don't know who fired the first round.
What do we know about Mr. Farouk's wife?
I'm going to let the FBI. That's a part of the investigation that they're working on, and so they're doing up the history on that. And I just don't have enough info about her.
Did it stop on its own accord, or was it disabled?
I believe it stopped on its own accord to engage the officers.
What does this mean going forward? I know you can't talk about county buildings, but city buildings. I know this is, probably a fluke, but what about security at city buildings?
So we stepped up security all across the city and all across the county yesterday at all of our city and county facilities. Schools went into lockdown today. It's my understanding that as of today, based upon the information, that we have no credible threats, that a lot of those facilities are returning back to business as usual. But yesterday, everybody went into a lockdown.
We're not going to see people with rifles in front of City Hall ongoing.
No, I don't anticipate you will. We've also.
Are they going to be back to
What's that?
operating as usual? Department of Environmental Health or
I don't know. We'll try to get those answers later on. Actually, I'll let the sheriff address that from the county.
Last night, the County Board of Supervisors held a special meeting and decided to make the decision to shut down the non-essential county departments for today and tomorrow. Not only to make sure that there weren't any threats that were still potentially developing yesterday, but as out of respect for the family members and fellow employees that were either victims or friends of the victims, and that's the decision the Board of Supervisors made. So the non-essential county operations have been shut down for today and tomorrow.
Chief, just to clarify, there's no suspects in connection in custody that you have currently?
Correct. It's my understanding we've contacted a number of them. They have been cooperative up to this point. I think there may be one or two that we're still looking for.
Were these suspects wearing cameras? Were they wearing GoPros?
They were not wearing. I've heard that rumor about the GoPros. I've asked our staff about it. Nobody's located GoPros. Nobody's located any evidence that they were wearing cameras of any sort.
Chief, do you know how many people were at the party?
I don't. We are going to try to get that by later this afternoon, though. Several of the family members have already been contacted, have been interviewed, and are cooperating. We're still looking for a couple of others. I'm sorry? I don't know anything about that.
Yes,
so.
The coroner's office is now having to handle 14 bodies at once. What impact is this having on the coroner's operation?
As you know, I'm responsible for the coroner's office as well. And our staff is on 12-hour shifts, and we've called folks in from their days off to assist with processing the scene and helping to identify the victims of this tragic event. We're in the process of making those identifications. The majority of them have been done, and a number of the notifications have been made, and we'll continue to update you as we get that information, and we can provide the names once the notifications of the next of kin have been made.
Will that be on the website?
We'll probably release it through a press release through our Public Affairs Division as we get that information.
Thank you. Two more questions. We're going to wrap it up.
Does the wife have relatives in the United States?
Not that I've been told. What country is she from? Pakistan. Thank you very much, folks. We'll be in touch throughout the day.
Thank you, sir.
Acá estoy.